Hey! Bananan! Bananan! Football! Watch out! It's NFL Straya. Watch out! Seriously, Gaz, this is insane. We're in the same room. I don't get this at all. This is NFL Straya. I am James Clements. You can see me on the AFL Today show, the official AFL Supercoach show, NBA Australia, a bunch of different shows. I'm not in Larry Armour Studios. This is, I think, the second time we've ever done this in person. Because on the other side of this here table is a bloke. He's the sometimes singer in a band called The Ramshackle Army. He's my mate. He's your mate. It's Gaz. Gaz, what's going on?
Jim, it's early in the season. It's like we're actually delivering on the thing that we've been talking about for 2 years, and that is being in the same room, doing some videos, and then doing this relatively sober.
Yeah, this might be the only second morning show we've ever done as well, right? I think we did one disgustingly hungover one year, and it was just like 8 a.m. and we were just like, what are you doing? I don't think we should do this. But this is the first NFL Straya for season 24-25.
It is. It is.
How's your prep going?
I've ignored. There was so much buzz around the Eagles in all of the off-season moves that we're going to touch base on that I think I had to just ignore it for a while. When it went quiet, I just went, blank out because it just became too hard to...
You became too hard, I think. Oof. That might have been it.
You're like,
Saquon Barkley. This is the preseason show. Thing is, we've also got a preseason show. Last year, and I think years prior, we might have just gone, preseason show. Oh, crap, it's week one. Here's our awards. Here's all our predictions. I think last year we might have had it a week prior, maybe.
Let's be honest, Jim. What happens is we go to the Catfish, get real drunk for Super Bowl, get real loose and talk about all of the things that we're going to do in the off-season to plan for the following season. And then we do a season wrap show where we try and stick to that, and then we don't talk for 6 months.
I don't think we even did the season wrap show this year. It was great.
Whoops.
I think we promised, it's now a running joke though, the off-season wrap, the draft show.
Yeah.
Like we keep promising, we just never do it.
No.
It's great.
No.
Anyway, we are, however, going to do an off-season catch-up in this show. This will be split into two parts, I reckon. We're going to off-season catch-up because I don't know if you've heard, a couple of things happened in the off-season. There's a few little movements here and there. A couple of the notable draftees as well. A lot of stuff going on. But then we're going to talk about the team win over-unders, one of my favourite vibes each year.
Yep.
I spend way too much money trying to guess on how it's all going to go. I think I did all right last year, but geez, some of them were shocking. But that'll essentially come down to who we think we like. We'll essentially have like two big things on each team that we'll talk out, essentially. Then we'll go into the NFL Straya Awards, which are the good ones. Like, I don't know, who's not going to suck? Who is going to suck? And I guess we'll probably throw in some beery-related things. Like, who do you want to get a beer with this year? Not Marvin Harrison Sr. or Jr.,
No.
if you're fanatics. Jeez. And also, Super Bowl predictions, I guess. What do you reckon? And the actual awards predictions too, like the actual proper nerd awards, like most valuable player in gear. But that'll be fun, I guess. So we should just bloody well get into it. What do you reckon?
Let's get to it.
All right. Episode 99 of NFL Straya. That's right. We're going to break this into two. So technically it's probably the 100th as well, but shush. Let's go. Yeah, I guess we can win a three-peat. I mean, it's pretty exciting. I've got a Travis Kelce. I'm best friends with Taylor Swift. It's going to be a great year. We'll be the first team to ever do it. This is Patrick Mahomes, and you're listening to NFL Straya. All right, Gaz. Well, that was weird that the dude from Police Academy dropped by. Bobcat Goldthwait, maybe, or Patrick Mahomes. No one's entirely sure.
You didn't mention there that they've just re-signed Schuster, so their season.
Did they?
Yeah.
Didn't even realise that.
Yeah, it happened today.
Nice one. Yeah,
Smith
geez.
Schuster. Juju is...
He burnt down the Pats, I tell you. Anyway, look, should we start there? Look, NFL Straya, we always just come like ass backwards into this season. We're just like, I don't know what's going on. And then we just sort of start. But this year, I think in terms of just sheer amount of moves, it's like an off-season like none other, right? Like, I listed all this stuff out, and these are just like the top-level stuff.
Yep.
And it took me ages. I'm like, this sucks. Why is Gaz not doing anything? But even like the QB stuff, like it started with like Cousins in gear, and like you've got just a bunch of dudes everywhere. So what happened in the off-season? What are we looking at? What are we vibing on? Well, there's the QB carousel in Pittsburgh. Remember Kenny Pickett? Pittsburgh doesn't. Pittsburgh's like, Kenny who? Kenny what?
Eagles fans know all about him right now and want the Steelers to take him back.
There was so much hype about Kenny Pickett going into last year too. Rusty Wilson. I remember him. Mr. Unlimited. Doing, what was his knees up on the plane over to bloody London. Ugh, the most annoying dude in the world. He's in Pittsburgh, but also because Chicago had the number 1 pick, you might have heard about that, and selected Caleb Williams. Jussie Fields, my beloved Jussie Fields, is also in Pittsburgh too. They're just like, nah, one of you will be good. And everyone's like, will they? Well, are you sure? Like, this is such a weird setup. We'll talk about it when we get to Pittsburgh and the over-unders, but oh boy, that's a weird situation.
We might end up with one of your favourite things, Jimmy, and that is a QB who starts a game and then handing over to another QB to finish the game.
I love that. Let's do that. Cousins goes to Atlanta after tearing his Achilles last year.
Wild.
And
for a lot.
Has been cleared
for a lot
to play.
Yep.
He got like an absolute boatload of guaranteed money. He's Riz Kurt. He's in like Atlanta. He's the whitest dude. Like quite literally, the line of like the whitest dude ever. Like it's the Kirk Cousins line, right?
Yep.
And now he's in Atlanta. Question, is that good or bad? Because he's like the whitest dude ever, but he's also like the cool, like the way that he sort of comports himself. It might actually really work in Atlanta, or it could just go horribly. That same thing goes for his actual footballing talent.
Yeah, I mean, he's just got those uncool dad vibes. And the bit,
geez, my shirt. Oh, I've burned a hole in my jumper there.
Vibes.
Oh, God, geez. Oh, golly gee, willikers. Shut up, Kurt. Kirk Cousins, though, the thing in Atlanta is like that's an actual quarterback.
Yeah.
He is a quarterback.
That is true.
He is an actual bona fide professional quarterback. They're paying him like it. So who knows what's going to happen. And they don't have Arthur Smith there anymore. We'll get to the coaches in a second. They also took Michael Penix number 8 in the draft.
I was about to say, you've just invested, your generational talent tight end and your generational talent running back.
And Drake London, generational talent wide receiver.
Yep. And spent a shit ton of money getting a quarterback from somewhere else. And then it's in a top 10 pick, you do that thing.
In a top 10 pick, you took like the 5th worst quarterback.
Yeah.
Well, like, there was the biggest reach of the draft, right? The Penix pick. Like, it was insane. Yeah. Anyway, JJ McCarthy, he was another draftee. He actually was there to replace Kirk Cousins in Minnesota. And this sort of happened like 2-3 weeks ago, right? He tore or at least hurt his MCL. And MCLs are a weird injury where you can go under the knife and like really just clean it up and it's like she should be right. Or you can like shave bits off and you're back in like a month and a half. It's like the Rusty Westbrook vibe.
Yep.
Look at Rusty Westbrook's career in the NBA, however, where it's like he's done that a couple of times and now he can't play basketball. He's cooked. Yep. He's more cooked than one of my old man snags. Like, but JJ McCarthy does that. That sucks because they have to turn to Sam Darnold. That's like what a kick in the dick for Minnesota, right?
Oh, but they've been saying, there's pundits out there are saying Darnold just needs that one more chance.
He's been in this league 6 years.
Jefferson.
I was in New York. I was living in New York when he got drafted. And they were just like, yes, Sam Darnold, here we go. And then he like gets mono. It was him, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was mono, yeah.
Yeah, he got mono and he was just shit and he got shipped out. He's been on like eight different teams at this point, basically. It feels like, he had that moment in Carolina last year, right?
Yeah.
And you're like, this is your shot. And just nothing. Just he stinks.
But if someone with the separation and catching radius of JJ can make anyone look good, it's gonna be him.
That's actually not a bad point. Like maybe he does have the best receivers of his entire career with like what? Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison on that team.
Yeah. How's Addison gonna go?
Gardner Minshew's on the Vegas Raiders. Don't like. I'm out. I'm flag planted. Bit too Trumpy for my liking, so I'm out on Gardner.
Where did this
Popped
come
off
from?
Like 2 days ago.
Yeah,
like he and Max Crosby, and it's like,
really?
I
already had those living in a van outside your gym vibes.
Yeah, but like, you can have those vibes without supporting an absolute fucking lunatic.
I know.
Right?
It's
It's a bit weird. Anyway. So Gardner Minshew, brew. Jameis, Cleveland. But so he obviously with the Saints and all this sort of gear.
Yeah.
Never could sort of like prize like David Derek Carr away from the starting gig. Deshaun Watson might be already cooked. We might get way more Jameis than we think this year,
Potentially.
which is sick. Give me more. Give me the. I'm going to eat all the W's. Like
They've
give me
already got all of
Jameis.
the, mic'd up from all of the Cleveland practices and stuff. And we're like, just mic him up every game. Just keep us coming. Keep those quotes coming.
I think Jameis could almost carve out a completely new and unique role in the NFL as player coach, motivational speaker. And just there's one other aspect of him in there too, where it's just you just need him on your team and you're going to be awesome.
He's just wild.
I love him.
Yep.
Cleveland might be cooked though. That team is weird. The defense is psycho. Deshaun Watson's arms are already hurting again, and you're
it's come out today that the Chubb's starting on the PUP list, so he's going to miss at least the first 4 games.
They were Chubb will start at some point in 2024. And you're really? Oh, God.
It's a shame if you had a dynasty team and you gave a number 1 pick for him last year and he lasted 2 games. And
Everybody's jumping on Jerome Ford now. Jacoby Brissett's in New England to help out my man Drake May.
Sure.
He's already hurt though, so the problem is they're well, we brought in Jacoby, we brought back the brisket.
Yeah.
So we don't have to throw Drake May to the Wolves. Jacoby gets hurt, and it's we have to throw him to the Wolves.
Yeah.
It's we've got a horrible start to this year. Anyway, it's going to suck. Tyrod Taylor's with the Jets to back up a bloke named Aaron Rodgers. It's pretty good. Sure.
Once again, I'm just hoping this guy comes back. He was ready to come back from that injury at the end of last year.
He was.
Apparently.
But that's kind of Tyrod Taylor is better than anything they rolled out last year in
Correct.
place of Aaron Rodgers, right?
Yeah.
So I actually didn't mind when I popped that up. I'm it's not bad. Josh Dobbs is on the Niners. I had to play this where's Josh Dobbs? Where is he going to go? Because he was on 4 different teams last year. He's on the Niners. And the other big thing, I guess, for QBs this year is who's healthy? Anthony Richardson's back. After it was a bung shoulder from last year, it's hey, Anthony, maybe just don't run into 87 linebackers at once.
Yeah, you're right.
What are you doing? Joey Burrow, the wrist.
Mm-hmm.
He's been cleared, but there's the reports that he hadn't thrown 3 days straight in training camp. You're that's probably
not great.
Because he's had literally a wrist injury that no QB's ever had, I think. It's not a football injury, so not ideal. Kirk Cousins obviously fully cleared for training, but they're going to try to basically figure out his reps as he sort of goes into the season.
Yep.
We'll have more clarity on that when we do week 1 preview next week, because we've got cut downs and stuff happening right now. All the rosters will be finalized. It'll be interesting to see what Atlanta are looking like and how confident they are in Cousins and co. Obviously Aaron Rodgers, the Achilles, no restrictions. Unless you put in the restrictions of was it non-compulsory camp that he just didn't rock up to and didn't tell anybody.
I'm not going to that.
They're asking Robert Saleh. He's I don't know. We told him. And Aaron Rodgers no one asked me.
Yeah, I'm out.
It's not compulsory. I don't have to go, right?
Yeah.
So, Deshaun Watson. So he had the shoulder and then he's hurt his arm again. So he was cleared for training camp. And then in the last 2 days, it's but his arm's a bit wonky. Jeez.
Yep.
And Danny Dimes, he's back, baby. And he's actually got a weapon in Malik Neighbors this year. Fully cleared for training camp. Are you afraid, guys? Are you afraid of the Giants, the New York footballing Giants?
No, I'm not at all. I'm afraid of neighbours, but the rest, nah. So they're already, in the last preseason game, they were starting linebackers in the slot and on defense because they were down so many people in the secondary. And the commentaries all around, they're all in on the defensive line, and if they can't get home, well then, cooked, absolute toast.
Who are their running backs? I haven't even looked at their depth chart yet. Anyway, whatever. That's one for fantasy. Coaches, the coaching carousel. So we've got Callahan in Tennessee, which is kind of fun because you know me, I love Mike Vrabel.
Yep.
He's a big bear. Just want to give him a cuddle. But not the world's greatest offensive mind, to light up other teams. It's we're going to establish the run because we are men. We are men, and that's what men do. And you're all right, Vrabel, settle down. He's no, we're running, Jim. And I'm Jesus Christ, Vrabel, just settle down, mate. What are you doing? Right. I'm not on your team, buddy. He's you will be in a second, pal. I'm all right, pal. But, so we'll get to the wide receiver. They've got a loaded offense out of nowhere. It might still stink, but at least they don't have Vrabes. And the other thing is Raheem Morris takes over in Atlanta from Arthur Smith.
Yeah.
Which Arthur Smith just, amazingly, he's in Pittsburgh.
I don't know.
I want no bar of the Steelers this year. That dude sucks. What are we doing? Dave Canales takes over in Carolina. We sort of knew that, I think, when we did our last show. Mm-hmm. Dan Quinn in Washington, which is interesting. Are you afraid of him?
they actually stacked a fair few talented dudes in free agency as well. Like they're all past their peak, but still with a little bit left. And I'm like, that Dan Quinn defense is a bit all right. I just don't know what they've got on offense though. Still with rookies and
Jaden Daniels. Let's go.
See what's going on.
Antonio Pierce got the nod just because I think he might have just threatened to beat up Mark Davis. All right. He's like, just make me the full-time head coach. He's like, I don't know. I want to have some more. He loves P.F. Chang's, the Chinese place. Yeah. And so he's maybe just sitting there like eating like one of those lettuce rolls and just like Antonio Pierce will put him in a headlock and give me the kid. Off you go. Then there's like Mike McDonald in Seattle, which is huge, I think, for their defense and like probably scheming their stuff out because he's not Pete Carroll. Like maybe, again, talk about like you've got 3 massive weapons and wide receiver on that team. You got a couple of good running backs. How did Seattle suck so much last year? No one is entirely sure. And then the 2 big ones for me, obviously, Jim Harbaugh.
Yes.
With the Chargers. And my beloved Juzzy Herbs. Everybody's like, oh, they're just going to run the ball. It's going to be a tough team. It's like, they've still got Juzzy Herbs. He's awesome. What are we doing? And then obviously Jared Mayo takes over from Bill Belichick in New England. And Belichick didn't get a job anywhere else because everyone's too smart for Bill Belichick, I reckon.
You reckon?
If you're the Raiders, why are you just not like going, fuck it, Bill, you just do the entire thing? Like, what have you stood for? What have you run? What have you won? What have you done? Like, nothing in the last, 20 years since they won 20 years when they're in even like remotely a contender? Like, it's crazy. It's like, we'll go with our trusted brains trust. It's like, your brains trust sucks. Just get Bill in. What are we doing?
And he's Party Bill now in his retirement. So you mean chuck him to Vegas?
Yeah, he's got the love of his life with him now. I love that. And the trade's the big move. So let's talk about some position stuff. RBs, Saquon Barkley off to Philly.
Oh,
that's pretty big. 3 years, 37 mil.
Excitement plus.
Derrick Henry to Baltimore, 2 years, 16 mil. Tony Pollard replaces him in Tennessee, 3 years, 21 mil. DeAndre Swift goes to Chicago for $24 million, 3 years. These, I hate saying like even remote contract stuff for NFL because it means nothing. Like it's 3 years, 37 mil. How much of that is guaranteed for Saquon? Like how much of it is guaranteed for Derrick Henry? How much of it is guaranteed for Tony? But not a giant amount, let's be honest. Austin Eckler goes to Washington, 2 years, 11.4 mil. Zach Moss goes to Cincy to replace Joe Mixon for 2 years, 8 million, which I actually don't mind. No. Anyway, Joe Mixon goes from Houston to Cincy. To Houston from Cincy, rather. And Houston, like this, we'll get into this when we get to the teams. But Houston are loaded for bear now because we'll get to Stephon Diggs in a second. But Mixon, like the quiet achiever, right? Of just like, I'm just going to run the ball. You can just build your offense. Sort of just rely on me. I'll be fine. Unless I get hurt and do a knee. Josh Jacobs goes to Green Bay. How did you feel about that one?
The instant reaction was, here we go.
Buttload of money too, right?
We got a bruiser and then you've got Aaron Jones and like, look out. And then all of a sudden, within about an hour, it's like, Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones is on the Vikings. So
he's gone.
So they basically gave Aaron Jones' money to Josh Jacobs.
Yep.
Aaron Jones is like, peace. Antonio Gibson goes to the Pats. J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards just go, we're a package deal. And they hold hands and went to LA.
I'm struggling, Baltimore. Jim. I'm just trying to follow the run sheet and follow the notes. But where's the Cowboys moves in this? So did you do something? Did they sign Zeke? Is that who they've taken Pollard over with? Is that what's going on?
So they went, we don't need Zeke Elliott. We'll go Tony Pollard for 1 year. It's like it's a SpongeBob smash cut 1 year later. They brought back Zeke Elliott and pissed Tony Pollard off to Tennessee.
Yeah.
So Tennessee now has Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, right? Which is kind of cool.
Yep.
Like, Tennessee, there's something about that. We'll get to him anyway. Wide receiver Stephon Diggs goes to Houston.
Wow.
He seems like a pretty cool guy who never gives anyone any hassles. That'll be fine. Calvin Ridley goes to Tennessee. Sure. Jacksonville thought they had him. They were like, we'll pay him this amount. And he's like, cool. These guys are going to give me more. And they're like, will they? And he's like, yeah. And he went. Like, good on him. Titans, hilarious. Tyler Boyd went to Tennessee as well. So this was the thing I was hitting on, right? They've now got DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, and Tyler Boyd. Throwing the ball is Will Levis, but I don't know. He's got a cannon for an arm. OBJ is on Miami for the moment. Keenan Allen went to Chicago. This was a big one for Caleb Williams. So Chicago got to ballyhoo this idea of like, no rookie QB's had it better than Caleb Williams ever. It's like, shit. I mean, you're making a pretty good point. Like,
Yeah.
Keenan Allen, Roma Dunze, and
That's pretty good.
DJ Moore, a tight end.
Yeah.
Like, sure, why not? Jerry Jeudy went to Cleveland. And so this is the thing when I say Cleveland, I'm like, this could be the most Cleveland year ever where you have zero offense
Yep.
and the best defense in the NFL.
Yep.
Like, if your offense gives you something. Like, is
Yep.
Jerry Jeudy good? Do you know? Does anybody know?
At his peak, but he just goes missing. And that's been the problem, right? That was where he was just causing grief in Denver. Well, I mean, this is behind
Rusty.
but
Jerry Jeudy just gives me way too many Kevin White vibes
yeah, okay.
from him.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, Mike Williams goes to New York. The Jets, he's already hurt though, I think. So it's Mike Williams. He's always hurt.
100%.
Deontay Johnson went to Carolina, which is actually, I mean, they still stink. But he's at least a guy who can catch a ball, maybe, for Bryce Young. I don't know.
Yep.
KC, though, this is the big one, isn't it? They draft Xavier Worthy, who's an absolute effing jet.
Yep.
And they got Hollywood Brown.
That's,
What is Patrick
Rich
Mahomes
gets
like?
riches.
Just
Yeah.
random, dudes who can run fast. He's like, give me all those guys. They'll be really good. And he got two dudes.
and then Juju.
And he's got Rashee Rice, because it doesn't look like he's going to get, that's the other sort of little bit of wide receiver news. The charges against Rashee Rice don't look like they'll impact this season, because he's not going to be fronting any sort of judiciary or any of the the legal system until November.
Yeah.
And so once he actually does, they'll probably then have to
repercussions. Yeah.
do that. So a bit weird. And the rookie wide receivers, this is awesome. What a year. Roma Dunze, I mentioned him on Chicago. Marvin Harrison Jr., which is radical.
They're just going to feed him, right?
Malik Neighbors.
What else are you going to do?
So Marvin Harrison Jr. gets picked by Arizona.
Yep.
Kyler Murray's like, God damn it, I can even see that guy.
Yeah.
hello, I can see him. Wing. But there's just dudes up and down this sort of rookie wide receiver class, what was it, Brian Thomas as well.
Yep.
There's just dudes.
Yep.
This is awesome.
Just going to impact all over the place.
You know how much more fun it makes fantasy as well when you got rookie wide receivers? Because half of them will be be
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But these guys are so good. The top 2, 3, you just you can almost lock them in as decent to good.
Yeah, because they're going to get
great.
fed because they're going to teams that, haven't had weapons.
Yeah. I love it.
As you mentioned before, neighbors for Danny Dimes. And you're like, where the fuck's he going to go?
I love it. Who's their tight end? I literally have no idea who's on this Giants team. Darren Waller? Is he still on the Giants?
Well, he retired and then unretired, and then I believe he's retired again.
It's the Zach Ertz playbook, isn't it?
Yep.
Landed on Washington. Defensive dudes. Christian Wilkins goes to the Raiders. Sure. Get paid, Christian.
Yep.
Good on you. Leonard Floyd goes to the Niners. The Niners also had a bit of an exodus of players. We sort of knew that was coming as well. But they did snag Leonard Floyd. Eric Armstead, speaking of which, goes to the Jags.
Yep.
Hassan Reddick got traded from the Eagles to the Jets and went, nah, I'm not rocking up.
The fucking best, because clearly he was, guys, you're going to invest in your defensive line and I want to get paid because I've had 3-4 years in double-digit sacks. And Jets said, well, I'll take you. I need that. So we took their defensive end, gave him, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, you didn't organize you didn't get the contract terms before you
Jets
came over. Yeah, not turning up. And now they've come straight out and said, well, we're not trading you, so you're just going to have to get fined. And I'm pretty sure he's got enough money to just milk
They're
out
also
those fines.
racking up, it's a large amount of fines already, right?
Yeah.
It's cranking. So.
It's not showing up.
Anyway, Xavier McKinney goes to Green Bay. Danielle Hunter to the Texans. Since he grabbed Geno Stone, which I loved because that's a bit of, I don't know, just the rich get richer, as we just said, right? Patrick Queen as well to
That was
Pittsburgh.
huge.
That was massive from Baltimore. And probably the biggest head scratcher, and it's not really a head scratcher because Carolina are absolute morons, but Brian Burns, Gaz.
Pretty good.
At one point last year, we saw Carolina knock back 2 firsts from Brian Burns. He then went to the Giants for a 3rd, I think. Like what? Talk about galaxy brains. Like, no, I don't want 2 firsts. I'll take a 3rd. Like, what are you doing? That's insanity. Like, oh, God. Chase Young ends up on the Saints. You have Snead on the Titans after leaving Chiefs, wins a Super Bowl. Off he goes. That's pretty big. And then the most annoying one, Matthew Judon. Probably my favorite Pat from last year, my only favorite Pat, is on the Falcons because they couldn't get to a happy spot when it came to his contract. At the same time, you sort of go, well, he's 31. We're rebuilding anyway. But I just love Matthew Judon. That stinks. The unresolved stuff, obviously Dak Prescott, his contract is still up in the air to be the highest paid QB of all time, probably again. I think he held that for a bit with this contract. But,
but we also did have CD got paid today.
Oh, he did?
Yeah.
There you go.
So he's now the second
$136 million.
highest paid non-QB in the league ever. Yeah, there you go.
Wow.
And then today, Malik Willis went from Tennessee to the Packers.
He did.
So there you go. There's moves even today, mate.
Malik Willis, he was just bad though. What are we doing?
Correct.
Jamar Chase is the other one as well. So Jamar Chase is like the unresolved sort of thing of like, I think yesterday he might have actually been practicing, but he was like a hold in rather than a hold out, right?
Yeah.
So he's like, hanging out at their facility.
Yeah.
It's like if like Leo, like social boy Leo just rocked up and we just weren't paying him. He's like, but I'm here. It's like, oh, well, cool, man. Like, what are you doing?
Just start heckling from the cheap seats.
I love it.
Boo.
So, out of all that, like, what did you sort of think were the biggest sort of impactful moves? Because we're about to go into the over-unders, right, for every team.
Yep.
And there's a couple of things we'll hit on for each team. But even with all of those moves, I don't think much really sort of moved me more than 2-3 wins sort of up and down. And I think the biggest ones are, as I sort of hit on, like Tennessee, like they could be, like talk about like high ceiling, low floor. Like there's nothing in between. So I don't know, was there something that sort of stood out to you out of all that?
I mean, I think the Falcons offseason is pretty monumental. You've just gone through, as you said, underutilized offensive weapons. You've invested all of this draft capital over the last 2 to 3 years to have Kyle Pitts in there blocking. Like, makes absolutely no sense.
Watching Desmond Ridder sail another ball over everyone's head.
Yeah. So, like, bringing in some of the defensive weapons, obviously Kirk and picking up some. Who did they pick up in the secondary?
That's a good question.
I
think I had it written down.
Did sign up someone? Oh my God, I can't believe it's gone blank. But
so
look, just addressing areas of need as well as a legit quarterback who can't perform in the playoffs, but
and a coach
can get there, and a coach and a defensive minded coach. So
I guess the idea is then, so off-season winner is probably Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
Off-season loser, flip side might just be Minnesota because they lost Kirk Cousins and they lose JJ McCarthy to an injury. Like, there's, like, we'll get to like the most hyped and overrated, underrated teams, but I feel like that, like Green Bay sort of had this offseason where like just all you need to do is build on what you've got, and they kind of did. They added around the edges. I didn't mind that. The Josh Jacobs sort of move was interesting. Mm-hmm. Like, I don't know if Aaron Jones is sort of past it yet, but they went, screw it. We'll get Josh Jacobs, who could definitely be past it. Who knows? We're about to find out. So, and Tennessee, I think, like in terms of like offseason winners, they at least look competent, right?
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
Perhaps. With an actual coach now, like, let's go. Maybe. Perhaps. Like, I love it. Tennessee, chaos team. We'll talk about that later. Right. Let's do win over unders for the entire NFL, Gaz. Let's do it. This will be my prediction, or at least my sort of first quick idealized run. Like, this is a little bit of strength of schedule. This is a little bit off-season stuff. What we're looking at for the team win over-unders for every team in the NFL this year. Do you want to start in the AFC North?
Sure.
That's how I've written it, so we're just going to do it that way.
I'm like, it's sitting right in front of me. Why not?
Especially at the top. Cincinnati, the over-under is 10.5. Do you like that? Over-under.
I think it all comes down to how Mr. QB's wrist is going to turn up. But Ravens invested heavily in those other couple of pieces. So I feel like they may run away with the division. But Cincy will be there. So I'm still going to go with the over.
I've got 11-6 for Cincy as well.
Yep.
I think there's two things that stand out for Cincy is like, when does Jamar Chase come back?
Yep.
How long does he take to get up to speed?
Yep.
And I think they might have like one of those patented sort of slow starts that Cincy do, and then just like kicking into gear in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
As long as Joe Burrow is healthy, like I think they get to 10 plus wins, probably 11. There's a little bit of room for wiggle, like just because I think, as we'll get to in a second, there's a couple of weird, stinky teams in the AFC. But it's also a pretty loaded conference. So I think it's going to be very flat or along that sort of 9, 10, 11 win totals this year. So speaking of which, the other thing for the Bengals is obviously their defense, like awesome at times last year. And then when it sort of, the rubber hits the road, it's like, where did it all go? Oh, God. Baltimore, 10.5 wins, over-under.
Over. I think, that King Henry going in there, adding on to Lamar, I think, they've got the division in my mind. It's just, even though they lost McQueen, they lost some solid pieces on defense, I'm still all right with it.
I'm more concerned about Lamar shitting himself just way too often.
Yeah.
Like quite literally.
Yeah.
Like diarrhea.
Just running.
Like, what are we doing, Lamar? Like, it's just a bit much. But at the same time, like the Henry piece is massive because it gives them like that dude where you don't have to rely on Lamar so much in the red. Like even to be honest, even last year they didn't like rely on him too much in the red zone, right? Like to run it in. But Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews, Derrick Henry, and Lamar, it's a good spine. So I've got them 11-6 as well.
Yep.
Just because I think again it takes them a little bit to sort of get into like the way that their season unfolds. I think there'll just be a couple of weird ups and downs, and Lamar will probably just shit his pants a couple of times, quite literally, and just be like, I've got to really figure out this diet thing. Like, what the fuck? Like, what are we doing? Just left the chicken wings or something. The Browns, the over-under is 8.5. I've gone under at 8 and 9, guys. I just don't like the offense. I think they stink.
Historically, on the way that the defense performed last year, it seems low, but then when you pull it apart and what you've mentioned on offense, not knowing what the wide receiver pickups are going to do, not knowing the status of Watson, not knowing the status of Chubb, who we already know is going to miss at least 4 weeks, and last year it looked like a career-ending injury. So, look, I can see why you've gone under. I'm going to go over. I'm going to put it on the back of that defense.
They did go, 11 and I think they were 11-6 last year.
I'm going to go on the back of that defense because it is pretty wild when it's stifling, Jim.
Yep. Stifling is a good word. They were awesome at home last year. I think they were 8-1 at home, the Browns, which is just insane. The defense was obviously really, really good, but it was also the third best defense in that division, which is crazy. But Deshaun Watson, the Jameis Winston thing, I'm just like, it's just that offense, it could just be so weird and janky. Like, you got David Njoku. Like, remember, the reason the Cleveland season turned around is because old-ass Joe Flacco, took control of this team and drove them to the playoffs, literally in a minivan. He's like, get in, boys, we're going to the playoffs. Anyway, Cleveland, I just don't believe in it this year. I think the defense will be awesome. I just think the offense is going to be just absolute. Like, I cleaned a nappy this morning that I'm just like, oh, God, Jesus. What are you eating, kid? He's like, Dad, I had soup last night. I'm like, what the fuck just happened here then? This is insane. The squidge is like, Dad, just fucking come on. Anyway, Pittsburgh, 7.5. Oh, geez, have you heard something about Steelers coach Mike Tomlin, Gash? Have you heard the stat? Never finished under 500? Yeah.
So they played preseason. We just finished preseason, Jim. And you've got two new quarterbacks in Pittsburgh. And they were playing preseason games against third stringers, Jim, with a guy who was a problematic offensive head coach at his last stop. And they were putting up 3 points a game against third stringers, Jim. I think you talk about the concerns about the Browns offense. I think the Steelers might be fucking terrible.
Arthur Smith is the sort of dude who takes an offense out behind the sheds and just like puts 2 bullets in the back of its head. And you're like, but it was healthy. What are you doing? He's like, nah, gone, bang. What the hell, man? They scored 3 points against the Bills in the preseason. They scored 12 points against the Texans and 17 points against the Lions. Like, what are we? It is brutal. I've gone under. Well, actually, no. I've gone over 7. It's 7.5. So I've actually gone 9 and 8. So I've gone the Tomlin 500.
Yep.
I don't want to watch a second of the Steelers
No.
this year. Right? Like, I'm not going to draft in fantasy. I'm not going to get like Jalen Warren or Najee Harris.
No.
I don't want any bar. Like, if they trade for Brendan Ayuk. So that was actually one of the other things that hasn't sort of been resolved is Ayuk is sort of like, hey, Niners, give me money. And they're like, maybe we will. Maybe we won't. We've got a trade here. The Pats were like, we'll take him. And they're like, get out of here, Pats. But I hate this Steelers team. Like, they're going to be awesome on defense. Every game of theirs is going to suck.
Horrible to watch.
Anyway, 9 and 8. Just over because Mike Tomlin always goes 500.
I know.
The biggest, obviously, everyone's favorite question so far about the Steelers. Oh, who's the QB in November? And it's like, oh, well, Tomlin doesn't like changing QBs. It's like, all right, well, then probably Russell Wilson. But don't you have to like kick the tires on Justin Fields?
You do, but you have to be losing the season. They have to be running away with it at the top from the Bengals and the Ravens, and you need to go. Yeah, let's be honest. We're not making a wild card.
All right, so I've got them 9 and 8, so they've got to be 2 and 7, and then Jussie Fields brings them home. I like that to get us to 9 and 8.
That's it.
All right. The Steelers deep, like this is awesome. Like the AFC North is going to be psycho. All the defenses are wicked. The Bengals, the Ravens, the Browns, the Steelers. The defenses are all just psychotic.
Yep.
And I think that's why it's going to even out, and that's why I've only got it's literally everyone's between 8 and 11 wins. I don't think anyone sort of goes above that or beyond that. The Ravens have probably got the most upside, I think, in terms of their offense with King Henry. The defense is psychotic as well. It was like, the best defense last year. But that is an absolutely brutal division.
Yep, 100%.
I think Baltimore end up on top with a head-to-head win.
I agree. Yep.
AFC East. This one's pretty fun as well, apart from my beloved Patriots who stink. The Bills, the over-under is 10.5. Gaz, over-under.
They feel, as much as we whinge about Stefan and the problems that he's caused and all this sort of stuff, we're putting a lot more on Josh Allen these days.
Well, he deserves it.
He does.
You want to get paid a lot, you got to cop it.
But he also has those bits where he goes missing every year. So we're about to enter another year of the Josh Allen roller coaster, Jim, where it's that kind of, oh my God, he's favourite for the MVP. And then it's a 4-week run of like, oh, how the hell did we even consider this guy at the top? And then he pulls him into the playoffs and
we're like, Josh Allen MVP? Yeah. We've just done completely these ones. So their depth chart on offense is Josh Allen. They've got James Cook, running back, who did some good things last year. Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman are their top 2 listed wide receivers, as well as Curtis Samuel. Yeesh. So you don't have Stephon Diggs. You don't have Gabe Davis either anymore. Dalton Kincaid and Dawson Knox, the best named combo of tight ends in the league. I love that. Can they actually get anything out of this offense is the big question for me. I think they can, but you talked about sort of ceiling and floor teams like with Tennessee. The Bills could stink and Sean McDermott could be fired by week 6, right? Week 8. Halfway through the season, they could be 1 and 7, 7 and 1. Neither would really surprise me. I believe in Josh Allen though, so I'm going to go the over.
Okay.
And I think the 10.5. So I've got 12 and 5 written there, but that could again be a little bit compressed just because I think how good the AFC is.
Yeah, and they've got they've already got dealing with some injuries on. Matt Milano could be, he's a pretty good linebacker. He's probably gone for the season. A few of those little things that we'll see. I'm going to go with, you've gone with 12 and 5. I'm going to go with the under.
All right. That checks out. They start their season, so they start with Arizona.
Yep.
Arizona have weird things where they might just start super hot and then fall off. That's the Arizona way. They then go to Miami, Jacksonville, Baltimore, Houston, the Jets. And it's that's a tough, it's an okay-ish opening 6 weeks, but it also could be crazily tough. You just don't know. So I don't know. That's a weird one for the Bills. I'll go the over. Miami, they a 9.5 wins. This one is like, again, is it cold? Well, they'll lose.
Yep.
Is it warm? Well, they'll win. Away we go. 9.5 is such a like assholey number for this over-under because I've just gone under at 9 and 8. So we'll see what happens, I reckon.
I'm going the opposite on this one. I'm going the Dolphins to take the over. I reckon they get to 10 wins. You've Tua staying upright, showing that he can. There's definitely, there's a little bit more stability. And he's talking about that whole, the coaching vibe, how he has really settled in over the last couple of years from the way that they were treated by Flores beforehand.
Yeah.
And they just seem to be growing in confidence. So I'm just going to stick with the Dolphins to go with the over. Maybe even take this division.
You know how much I love Mike McDaniels?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
At the same time, he's got to win a playoff game, doesn't he?
It's true.
Like, these are one of those weird ones where you're like, all right, so each year your team is good in the first half and then shit in the second half and you lose in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we doing here? Come on. I'm fascinated to see what happens in Miami. Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Mostert, Achane, like it's on. Yeah. Like, let's go, but still. Let's go Miami. I've got them 9 and 8 though. So they just go a half game under. I just feel like injuries could completely submarine their season and it gets weird and wonky and away we go. Jets.
Speaking of injuries submarining a season, good transition, Jim.
Nice. Over under 9.5 wins for the Jets, Gaz.
I mean, this has got to be the biggest asterisk out there, right? Because
you have a 40-year-old quarterback.
Yeah.
Coming off an Achilles injury?
I know. But he can move the ball down the field.
He can.
They do have some offensive weapons there.
They do.
And they do have a decent secondary.
They do.
Sauce Gardner's a bit all right. So if he's on and plays, over.
Yep.
If he lasts 4 plays and 2 minutes of game time, under.
Simple as that.
Both are valid.
We nailed it. I've got them 10 and 7. I think their defense is going to be awesome. I think Rodgers and Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall and stuff.
Yeah.
There'll be moments where they look like the best team in the NFL.
Yep.
And there'll be moments where they look like they've never met before.
No.
And you have remember Aaron Rodgers, before he went to the Jets, there were times in Green Bay where it's like, is he fucking cooked?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on there? Like, some of it was just shit. And that's why Green Bay were like, we've got Jordan Love.
Yeah. That's
okay if you want to go, Aaron. That's fine, mate. Off you go. Right? And I feel like everyone's like, but it's Aaron Rodgers. Yeah, it's fucking 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers coming off an Achilles, inoculized against fucking COVID. Like, he might be he might end up being the vice president before he actually gets to 10 wins. Like, what are we doing here? Trump's just going to fucking neck JD Vance or whatever and RFK and just it's actually, it's going to be this guy. And you're fucking Aaron Rodgers I'm the vice president? What the fuck? Jan 6, let's go. It's a weird team, but I think they're good. I think their defense is good. I think Robert Saleh's a good defensive coach, and Aaron Rodgers and his fucking best mate, Nathaniel Hackett, they'll be like, all right, here's the offense. Let's go.
If they don't, side question, if they don't make the playoffs with all the moves that they've made in the last couple of years, is Salah gone?
Yes. Yeah, definitely.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be.
They would definitely just roll the dice one more time for one more year of Rodgers next year if need be, and that'll be it.
Yep.
Probably just promote Nathaniel Hackett. It's 2-time head coach Nathaniel Hackett. The Pats, they're horrible. Over-under is 4.5. I'm going under.
We did say before we went to air about how many jokes this year about the Pats, and you were strapping in to take it more than Carlton took it from the Saints on the weekend.
Whoa.
But
that was uncalled for.
I needed a drive-by. I resisted calling you on Sunday, Jim. But
you could have been watching me live on TikTok. It was it was fucked. I'll tell you that much anyway.
But to go under on 4.5.
Defense is not that good. Offensive line is fucked. Rookie QB, fuck all offensive weapons. How does this team win 5 games?
Yeah, fair. Okay.
First year head coach. They're fucked. It is just strap in for another tanking year and it's fine. This is great. I know what to expect. I know that they're going to be shit. It's the hope that kills you, right? It's the hope that kills you. Pat's under. Look, Ramondre Stevenson, Antonio Gibson, it's we'll run the ball to save Drake May a little bit. But like the way that their season starts is just fucking brutal. Like this is simple idea of like, oh no, it'll be fine. They start at the Bengals. They play at home to the Seahawks, who could be awesome. They then go to the Jets. They then go to the Niners, play the Dolphins, play the Texans, play the Jags, play the Jets again. Those last 4 are actually all at home, but those first 4, 3 of those 4 are on the road. And if Drake May's starting, it's like, hey, kid, want to see a dead body? Like, fuck that. No. Get Jacoby Brisket out there right now. Anyway.
It's not a stretch to see you guys going 0-6 in the division.
Pat's under. Yep. AFC South, the Jags, over under is 8.5. I'm going to go over by a half, 9-8. I talk about another team that could have the absolute arse fall out of them. It could be the Jags. Yeah. Doug Peterson, not sure if he's a good coach, guys. Don't know what to tell you.
He's been there. He's
certainly been there.
He's got the best out of life. He does have a statue.
He does.
But he did get the best out of Lawrence. But that was a massive improvement. But is that the best out of Lawrence?
That's the big question.
That's
for them
the question,
this year,
right? That's not.
I've still got them over at 9-8. But this could also just be like, this is the team that stinks out of absolutely nowhere. And everyone's like, yep. And Peterson's gone like halfway through the season or something.
But I always start with how you're going to go in the division, which is the obvious place to start. We know Tennessee's improved. We know Houston were getting red hot and then have added weapons if Stephon can try not to throw shit at people. And then Richardson's come back for the Colts, who outperformed last year, let's be honest. So the Jags might be the same as last year and still suffer based on everyone else improving.
Well, I've actually got them the same as last. They went 9-8 last year. I've got them 9-8 this year. So
there you go.
I feel like they just hit that perfect middle of like, who do you reckon? Like Christian Kirk, Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr. Thomas Jr. is like he is huge. Like it's weird to say like, yeah, a rookie wide receiver is massive for your season, but it probably is.
Yeah.
Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby obviously is their running backs.
Yep.
Their schedule, like the way that they start as well, is going to be pretty important. They play at Miami week 1. Oof. It feels like they're going to get absolutely killed. Then they host Cleveland, go to Buffalo, go to Houston. You're like, oh.
That's
tough one for Jacksonville.
You find out who you are.
Tennessee, over under 6.5. I've still got them at 6-11. I'm still going under. But as I said, ceiling, floor.
Yep.
See what happens?
Yep.
I don't know. It's a fascinating team. I love this Tennessee team.
Yeah.
They went 6-11 last year. I'm just not changing my AFC South apparently this year. I'm just like, same as last year. Let's go.
Keep it there.
What do you think about Tennessee?
Yeah, look, I there's definitely been improvement. I think losing Malik Willis is not going to move the needle.
Oh no. Whatever will we do?
But yeah, I mean, look, let's see. There's been a lot of changes in the offseason. I don't have any confidence that, as you said, they're going too far in either direction. They made nice moves, but we'll, as you said, we've got Richardson coming back. We've got Houston, who seem to be stacked with a coach that they'll run through walls for. And Jacksonville,
There's just too many questions about this Titans team, right? Like, It's like, yeah, you've got Ridley, you've got Hopkins. Like, that's awesome for fantasy. Are you going to win games with Will Levis, though? Don't know.
Yep.
Houston Texans over 9.5. Holy crap. I might have actually just gone the same as last year. 10-7. I think that's what they landed on last year, which is great. Good job, me. No, I've got Indy going under as well. Anyway, spoiler alert. Texans 10-7. They are the sexy team.
Yeah.
The sexy team this year, Gaz. You get Stephon Diggs. You add him to CJ Stroud, who threw for 1 billion yards last year as a rookie. You're going to be the sexy team.
Yeah. And particularly when you were the surprise team that caught everyone, you can't say napping because no one would have expected that. Particularly when the other top 5 quarterback struggled.
Yep. You got Daniel Hunter as well. You got Will Anderson on that defense. They're just kind of loaded, but sexy teams sometimes have that weird sort of like hiccup year, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like this is not like the world-beating Texans that you might expect after how good they were at times last year.
Yep.
I am going to go at 10-7, as I said. So that is still over.
Yeah.
So anything over 9.5, I feel okay about.
Yeah. I'm going the over on that. I think that, sexy or not, that'll, they might stumble at a loss or two, but still, I mean, those weapons with what they did last year with freshy wide receivers.
Let's go.
Had some experience and off we're racing.
Colts, over under 8.5. I've gone under. I feel like the Anthony Richardson thing just worries me too much. Like he cops one more hit on that shoulder or something, and then he's out for like another 6 weeks.
He was crazy. Like you talk about floor and ceiling. Like his ceiling's ridiculously high, but his floor is really low if he's kamikaze and he's keeps running into defensive.
Because he was so good in the games he did play last year, like he's such a fantasy like darling.
Of course. Yeah,
that I think everyone's like overrating like the Colts' chances then.
Yeah.
Right? And like you have Jonathan Taylor still on that team, Michael Pittman. But outside of that, like I just have big questions. Like defensively, they're still pretty decent, like the Colts, but I just struggle to see. Well, I just don't want to like go, oh, well, Anthony Richardson will definitely be healthy.
Yeah.
Will he?
And for how long?
How good of a thrower is he? Like, we're not entirely fucking sure.
Yeah.
So we'll find out. I'm going to go 6-11 for the Colts.
Yep.
AFC West. KC, can they pull off a three-peat? No one's done it. Over-under is 11.5. I'm going to go 12-5. Institutional knowledge. They're still loaded. They're still good. I think we'll see very similar to last year, though, where they're just like very scratchy. Scratchy. You turn around, they somehow won 12 games. Right? They've got a little bit more wide receiver depth. Offensively, they should be a little bit better. Defensively, they've still got a couple of question marks. They were at times last year as well, but it all coalesced in like January and February. Didn't matter. Chiefs over under Gaz.
Yeah, I think, mate, I feel I want to go the over. 11.5 seems it's always that start to get those lofty numbers that become hard to pick. But when you look at the rest of the division and what's happened in the offseason, who's challenging?
That's a really good point about the division because I think this division could be pretty bad.
Yeah, they're just going to run away with it. So I'm comfortable with the over even at, plus 11 games.
They were 11-6 last year.
Yep.
I reckon 12-5 this year's pretty doable.
Yep.
Chargers, new coach, Juzzy Herbs. His wide receiver one is Josh Palmer. Yeesh. They've got the Baltimore running backs from last year. Sure. Over-under is 8.5. I've got them. Like, all Jim Harbaugh does is come in and make teams better. Like, He did that for the Niners. He did that for Michigan. He did that for Stanford. Stanford? Yeah. And I'm just like, I think they'll be better. I just don't know if they've got enough talent to be really good.
Yeah,
that was 5-12 last year, so 8-9 is an improvement.
Yeah.
Which is what I
kind of want to give them just a pass for this year and go, just go out and try your best, boys. This is the transition year.
Yeah,
that has to be the expectation. When all those weapons, Keenan Allen's pretty good, even in his aging, with his aging body. He's still going to put up some yards. He's a lost weapon. There is what I'm saying.
Nice
gaps. Language, Gary. But Harbaugh is not a kingmaker straight away. And your mate Juzzy Herbs. Poor bastard, mate.
I think, look, the way that Harbaugh builds his teams, right, it's like inside out also. Basically. So we're going to be just tough.
Yeah.
Like we've got our strength and conditioning coach that he brought with him everywhere. Mm-hmm. They're just a tougher team than you. I just don't know if the base talent of the Chargers is good enough to I've already got them winning 3 more games than they won last year. It could easily be 4. I don't know if it's going to be 6.
Is it the Harbaugh factor or the Staley factor? The fact that he's not there.
It's the stepdad vibes, right? Yeah. The Broncos, 5.5. I've got this under at 5-12 because I think this team is shit.
Yeah.
Bo Nix has already been confirmed as the starter. The first Broncos rookie starter confirmed since John Elway.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. Bit of a fair pair of shoes to step into, I guess.
Yeah.
I just don't think they're very good, Gas.
Nah, they're just... the under's there. They haven't built enough. They haven't bought in enough weapons. And you're throwing a rookie QB to the Wolves in a division owned by the Chiefs.
Javonte Williams and Samaje Perine. Sure. Cortland Sutton is your wide receiver one. And Tim Patrick, I think he's already on the trade block to the point where they're going to cut him if they can't find a trade.
Yep.
It's like, all right, sure.
And you're gone.
Defensively, you got a couple of big-ish names on there. But I just do not believe in this team at all. This is like, you've got a coach who I still think Sean Payton was like wildly overrated for years and years and years after winning the Super Bowl with the Saints. This might be the moment where you're like, is he actually any bloody good? Well, this is a big prove it year. I just don't think they're very good. 5-12. Raiders, under 6.5. I think this is another team that's just not very good. 6-11 feels pretty good. this division is stinky. This is why the Chiefs are just going to kick the crap out of them.
Yep.
Raiders will pop up and win 1 or 2 random games because that's what the Raiders do. That's why I sort of get to 6-11, but still under 6.5, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, look, and Minshew's not a season-long quarterback, so I could see...
What did Aiden O'Connell do? I mean,
change somewhere along that line.
I also can't believe they went 8-9 last year. Like, that's just silly. But
yeah, they're just going to get through this year, end up with a high draft pick, and then go after a long... Like, the moves were never... They didn't seem to be close to chasing or securing a top-flight QB. So they're in that kind of middle of the range where winning that number of games last year actually penalized them, right?
Does Devontae Adams finish the season on the Raiders?
He's not there for the reason that he went there. Weird. So he can I could see a couple of games in some key injuries or a team who is successful enough that they're just missing a piece or two.
Yep.
Overspending.
Interesting. God. It feels like he's just not there.
No.
Just saying.
No.
All right, that's under. NFC, let's do it. NFC North Detroit Lions over under 10.5. They were awesome last year, weren't they? I've got them 11-6. I think this is just a tougher year where like there's actual expectations all of a sudden.
Yep.
But they still go over the 10.5. Goff, Amon Ross and Brown, Jimmy Gibbs is healthy at the moment.
Yep.
I think they have enough on offense. I think they're fast. I think they're tough. I think this is a tough division, but I think 11-6, they get there.
Yeah, they lost a couple of pieces on say defense and stuff as well. CJ GJ went back to Philly. It's just I hope they haven't lost enough pieces that they go back to the Lions from 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
When it was just let's put up 50,000 points because our secondary is going to get smoked.
Yeah.
And
it could happen.
when we had the coming out party for Love last year, Bears have all of a sudden got some weapons, and Vikings going to stink. But
Speaking of which, Vikings over under 6.5. I'm going under 5-12, 5-12. I think Darnold, even 5 feels like pretty nice of me. Like this could be a team that just absolutely bottoms out, and you're just like, oh, rebuild it all, start from scratch. Get JJ out there next year. Off you go.
Yep.
Chicago, 8.5. I've got them under, but 8 and 9 because I think Caleb Williams is going to be fun. This is still an improvement on last year where they're 7-10. Let's go. Come on. Let's go Chicago.
He's got enough weapons. You just don't know whether that wins is inflated by the names.
Sure. And it's also still Matt Eberflus in charge. He had to glow up this offseason.
Yep.
They're on Hard Knocks.
Yep.
He's looking handsome.
Yep.
Don't know if that helps his coaching. Just saying. I love Caleb Williams though. So I just think this will be like fits and starts, right?
Yep.
Like you've got weapons, you've still got to get the ball to them.
Yep.
Sometimes.
Yeah. Look, I'm happy to go with the under here, mainly because of, as I just mentioned, the coming out party for Love and the Packers. Now there will be there's some serious expectations again in Green Bay. Right, after making the playoffs and smoking the Cowboys.
Yeah.
And then obviously the Lions are very strong.
Speaking of which, Packers, 9.5. That feels low. I've got 11-6.
Yeah.
I think the Packers are awesome. They were so good in that playoff run last year. They finished 9-8 last season, but looked awesome.
Yep.
And gave the Niners should have beaten the Niners in the playoffs. And sort of just gave up the ghost. One more year for Love. I think they're a lot better. 11-6.
Yeah, and look, Aaron Jones was obviously a fair, decent running back, but had some injury issues. Now you got Josh Jacobs just going to pound them between the tackles. While you've got some outside weapons, they were obviously young dudes, rookies. How many times were we talking about Packers wide receiver games going, fucking who? And the best part of the Packers last year was there was no number one that you just had to take away, get over the top. So extra year in the system, settled. I think Packers will go the over on the 9.5.
Josh Jacobs to go with Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Jaden Reed. Luke Musgrave as well. Yep. Interesting year as a rookie for the tight end. He could go bang again, but it's an egalitarian offense. That's awesome. Go Green Bay. NFC East, guys. Here we go. Take it away. The Philadelphia Fly, Eagles, fly. Are you going to win some games in the second half of this year? 13-4,
Wow.
I've got them at.
I think, mate, in terms
Might be a bit of a
of
troll because the over-under is 10.5, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, look, I'm going the over here too. If I look at the gaps of what we had last year, Swift was good, I think, but Saquon behind this offensive line. Yes, we've lost Kelsey. Also traded for a guy called Dotson from Washington, who's just coming in to be our third wide receiver. Got CJGJ back. Took 2 of the top 5 cornerbacks in the draft. Changed our no-name coaches for Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. So we've actually got some systems in there, maybe have some movement. Jalen Hurts is reportedly healthier again. I'm liking us in this division this year.
So I feel like it's weird. I think people got bored with the Eagles.
Yeah.
And so, they've changed their coordinators 2 times in 2 years. It's like, yeah, but now they've got good ones.
Yeah.
Like, that's probably better than having shit ones, I reckon.
The game was stale. It was so frustrating last year because we had no motion. We were predictable. We did 10 games. We're like, we're 10-1. And then all of a sudden people went, that's what you're calling.
We figured it out. Was it?
Yeah. So apparently, look, Kellen Moore, as much as he was the wonderkind who was supposed to be going to the Chargers, and then that all fizzled out. He's already bought some of that, the motion and the disguise to the Eagles offense that everyone seems to be happy with. So we'll see what that actually means because we've played no starters in the preseason, so I've got no fucking clue. But I like where we've. But
I love it. It's like you got Saquon, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, Jalen Hurts.
Dallas got it.
You should be fine.
Yeah.
Cowboys 9.5 wins. I've gone the over just because I think even with the holes that they've got on offense, some of the holes they've now got on defense. I think again there's just like a talent level, and like I think the Giants and Commanders are going to be wildly variable, and the Cowboys can sort of ride that a little bit roughshod to probably knock that down to 10-7 this year. Yeah, I had it 11-6, but I think the way that we've sort of seen this preseason roll out, just a little bit further back, but 10-7. Yeah,
look, I think it's as much as I take the piss out of what the moves they didn't make. I think it's still safe to say this is a double-digit win team. That defense is pretty awesome. I mean, obviously they've already lost Bland to I think it's out 6 to 8 weeks. All pro secondary. They've already lost someone on. They've got a lot of movement at the moment on the offensive line, and who they've drafted. His name escapes me. Whether that's continued to improve and get them back to where that offensive line was, but CD's pretty bloody good. Dak. Still got Brandon Cooks. Still got what's their Jake Ferguson is their tight end, right? Yeah, they should be fine. Yeah. Giants 6.5. I've got it under at 6-11. I think there's enough sort of defensive sort of vibes here, and Brian Daboll just to sort of eke out to 6 wins. But there's nothing inspiring about the Giants this year for me, apart from Malik Neighbors. Yeah, and it's all of those questions for Danny Dimes are gonna come home to roost because they tried to get him a tight end. They've got him a instant number 1 wide receiver. The tight end is Daniel Bellinger. There you go. Sure. Devin Singletary's their running back. Sure. That's exactly it. So they haven't filled in what they lost. The secondary's looking like a shambles. They've invested everything in that defensive line, which if it gets home, Brian Burns and stuff like that's awesome. It's going to hurt people. But once again, right, if you're stacking the box to take on someone like Barkley, well, then you've got to deal with just bring back Tommy DeVito, Brown and all that sort of stuff. And you still do have a division that does have CD in it. So yeah, look, I think I'll go the under on the 6.5 as well. Nice one. Giants under. What about the Commanders 6.5 as well? I'm going to go the over with that. I've got them 8 and 9. I think Jaden Daniels is good. Yep. I think they're fun. They've actually got a half decent coach. Yep. See what happens. The coach is actually awake and paying attention, maybe. So. Yep. And they made a shit ton more moves than a lot of people in free agency. So they've picked up some nice weapons. Zach Ertz, who's Austin Eckler. So many. And they've also got Cliff Kingsbury as their OC, just to ride roughshod with Jaden Daniels. Playing that college. 8 and 9 though feels pretty easy. Like that's a big improvement, obviously, for the Commanders, like vibes wise. I think this year
because they went 4-13 last year.
It's been a
Get
been
four wins.
a lot of shit years to be a Washington fan.
NFC South, Saints over under 7.5. Is this the least inspiring team in the NFL? 7-10, I've got them going under.
I just don't want to watch any team in this division except for the Falcons.
Yep. Derek David Carr going under. Falcons over under 9.5. I'm going over.
I'm going over.
I've got 10-7. That could easily be 11-6.
Yep.
Defensively, getting Judon and stuff is awesome. Panthers over under 5.5. How would they win 6 games?
How did you
3-14. Gross. This team sucks.
How much you've invested in that quarterback position, only to walk away in the second year, not able to squeak out 6 wins?
Does Bryce Young get benched this year if he stinks? Do you pull the pin on a first overall pick within 18 months? Anyway, the under. Tampa Bay. This is a weird one. Over under 7.5. The Baker Mayfield Buccaneers. 8 and 9. I've got them going just over.
I'm okay with taking them over just because some teams have to be over in this division.
Well, they went 9 and 8 last year, right? And this team is just so
they just
weird
squeak
and wonky.
them out. They just squeak them
You've
out.
still got Evans and Godwin.
Yeah.
You've got Baker, Rashad White, handy, sure.
Yeah. Evans will take over his 3 or 4 games this year and just go, I'm still good.
Yeah.
And
Check this
then
out. Here's 3 more touchdowns.
Yep.
NFC West, the Niners over under 11.5. I've got them going under 11-6. I just think as Shanahan figures out the defense and the way that sort of the pieces they lost, as he sort of fixes that, Brock Purdy, fascinating to see what this sort of year holds for him. Debo, Christian McCaffrey, it's still there's always question marks around them health-wise.
Yep.
I'm just trying to play it a little bit in the middle. 11-6 is you're healthy at these times, you win enough games, you still look awesome, away we go. The one that I wanted to change was the Seahawks. I want to bump them up to 11-6. I'm way more in on the Seahawks than I thought it was going to be. Over-under was 7.5.
Yeah, right.
I've got them 11-6. New coach from Baltimore, Mike McDonald. I just think they're going to be pretty good.
Pretty good. Yeah. Have we seen a lot enough in that division change and move the needle to take the division off San Fran? I don't think we do.
Probably not.
I don't think we do.
Rams over-under is 8.5. I'm going to go under. Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua. They lose Aaron Donald, though. He's like, peace out, I'm good. I'm the greatest who ever played.
Yeah, I'm done.
So I'm out.
Yep.
I think under. I just think the Rams, there's just a weird little what do you got on defense for me?
Yeah. Look, they came in, they played spoiler a bunch at the end last year, and they came in kind of hot and settled down that little bit extra year with some of those new players like Puka, but a team's going to scheme against him. You just don't know. So, yeah, look, I'm happy to go with the under, only because I do see that Arizona, after stinking last year, will improve slightly.
Yep. 8 and 9 for the Rams. It's it feels like this is they were the surprise team last year, right?
Yeah.
And they sort of just came from the clouds and you're like, oh, God, are they still good? God damn it.
Yep.
This might be the year where you're like,
Back to
right,
earth.
yes, not as actually good as we thought. And then, of course, finally, the Arizona Cardinals, 6.5. I've got them going over 8 and 9, same as the Rams. I didn't actually add up all my over-unders this year.
Yep.
So I've just sort of thrown numbers out there. We've probably gone too many wins.
Yeah.
So there's going to be...
Someone has to
but
lose,
the thing
Jim.
is, there's
Someone
always
has to
one or
lose.
two surprise teams that just completely bottom out.
Yep.
And this year, you look at it, you go, Pats, Carolina, they stink.
Yep.
There'll be one or two that just suck. And you're like, where did that come from?
Yep.
And it could be someone like the Giants who win 2 games or something like that. The Titans who either win 8 or 2, right?
Yep.
That sort of weird stuff. Arizona, though, Kyler Murray back and healthy, Trey McBride, Marvin Harrison Jr., they just feel better.
Yeah.
They've got Gannon still as their coach. They should be improved.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just not sure whether we're,
I'd say 7 and 10 for them rather than 8 and 9.
Pre-draft, people talking about Harrison Jr. like he was the second coming of his dad. Funny about that.
Weird.
So, yeah, I don't know how much he will improve that. Obviously, McBride coming out, and he was a bit of a surprise last year. Not for me, who had him stashed on his bench in my dynasty league.
Boo.
Nice to get me through a couple of games there. But, yeah, look, they should definitely be improved, but their coaching staff doesn't set the world on fire as far as I'm concerned. So we'll just see if Kyler takes it, his little 5-year-old scramble Like he's running down a field.
Toddler, yeah, he looks like Dash when he's grabbing the phone.
Yeah.
Squid number 2 is like, Dad, I got your phone. Just gone. You're like, all right. All right, so those are all the divisions. I think the winners I've got are probably Baltimore.
Yep.
Buffalo, but it would not surprise me if the Jets win that division. Like Buffalo have that sort of wonkiness. AFC South, I think Houston win that. AFC West, the
agreed.
Chiefs. NFC North, I think that's the Lions. NFC East is the Eagles. NFC South, Atlanta. NFC West, Niners. The thing is, that all just sounds too easy.
Yeah,
like one of those teams is going to be shit.
Yep.
Right? One of them. It might be Buffalo.
That's what I was thinking.
I reckon Buffalo might be the one with the wobbliness.
I reckon
Jets?
If the Jets
Miami?
don't, Miami. If the Jets don't, like Rodgers doesn't come back and just go, oh, I'm going to prove you all wrong that I was washed up, then the Dolphins might take this out as long as they don't have to. Like one of those, I think we said this last year, they have to take out the division because otherwise they're playing in New York in January.
Ugh, no thank you.
It's just they have to win the division.
So Miami, if you look at their sort of schedule, the back end of it this year, I think is pretty tough where they play in Cleveland and in New York to finish off the season, which is, I don't know, not ideal if you're the Dolphins, right? They do host the Niners, though, the third final week. So swings and roundabouts. All right, there you go. That's it. The over-unders. Preseason NFL Straya locked it away. That's it for this episode. Well, half this part of this episode. We'll go to part 2 when we give away some awards and our Super Bowl picks. So that'll be, I don't know, released at some point after this one. So in the meantime, make sure you're following NFL Straya across all the socials, all the good stuff. Check us a follow on Facey, Twitter, IG. Get around all the other shows as well that we have. AFL Today, AFLW, NBA Straya, Football Today, all the good stuff there. Hold all tickets. Find us a rating review on your iTunes, your Apple Podcast, your Google Podcast. That doesn't exist anymore.
Doesn't.
YouTube Music.
You should update your run sheet.
Spotify. Whatever app you use on your weird Android phone. Like, review, and star. Thanks to House Hats for the intro and outro song. They rule. And Gaz, you got a gig coming up. Plug that.
Random. Like, I haven't played a gig since we finished the last season. And then all of a sudden it was like someone went, oh, Gaz is going to need something to plug. Ramshackle Army are playing coming up at the Tote and the Drunken Poet. And I just kind of sneaking out a couple of gigs coming up. So keep an eye out for mid-September, the 13th and 14th. Friday the 13th, Jim. I'm going to get drunk at an Irish pub.
That sounds pretty good.
Fucking great.
Don't mind it. All right. We'll catch you in a bit for part 2 of this massive, mega season preview show. Catch you in a bit, you dickheads.
See yas.
Later, hosen.